Excel accounting practice problem. Cash payment for inventory linked to purchase order or PO. Get ready, because we're going to excel. Here we are in our Excel worksheet. In prior presentations, we set up the Excel worksheet from a blank sheet, continuing to enter transactions into it at this point in time. If you have access to it, there's going to be two tabs on down below. We got the example tab, the practice tab starting out where we left off last time, example tab then being the answer key. Let's take a look at the example tab now. In prior presentations, we started off our new business first investing in it from the owner, increasing cash with an owner investment, then a loan, increasing cash with a loan. Then we took that money, invested in furniture and equipment, and also took some of it and put it into a short-term investment. Now we're going to say that we are receiving then the inventory, or in essence, we're going to record transactions related to the purchase of inventory. I say in essence because we do want to kind of mention the process of the purchase order when we're thinking about recording our financial transactions with regards to the journal entry process. But before we do, let's go back to the practice tab here. So we're in the practice tab. I'm going to hide the cells on the left-hand side because we don't need them. From A, so we're going to put our cursor on A to skinny E. A to skinny E, right-click on those items and hide them. And then I'm going to take the end column here because I want to take these end numbers, which is what we left off last time, put them in the beginning numbers so we can focus in on just the transactions we're looking at this time. A little bit strange, but allowing us then to see this nice little worksheet as well as having the detail from the general ledger. Strange because oftentimes we would create the trial balance from specifically the general ledger, but this gives us a little bit easier viewpoint on every transaction. So we're going to copy these and paste them 1, 2, 3, just 1, 2, 3, not the formulas only. And then we'll delete the items in the middle. So we've got our starting point. So these are our starting numbers, which are the same as the ending numbers last time. The detail for the whole period is still in the GL. So now we're going to say that we're having a purchase of inventory. Now, first off, I want to make a quick mention with the purchase order. The purchase order is a form that will typically be used to request the purchase of inventory. So if you're working in accounting software, you will often be using that to create the purchase order. It's a funny form, however, because it's not something that actually has a financial transaction related to it, meaning there's no impact on the financial statements from the purchase order, but it's a request for inventory from the vendor. Oftentimes they would then send the inventory. Once received, then you enter the bill and or pay for it at that point in time, and then record the inventory at that point in time. So I just want to mention that with the purchase order, we're not actually going to record anything related to the purchase order into our system. We would have to track the information of the purchase order to kind of tie it out to what we actually received. A little bit different than if you're in a situation purchasing something like online, like Amazon, then you actually pay for it even though you haven't got the inventory. That's not the case with the purchase order. Therefore, there's no transaction related to it because we don't own the inventory and we have not yet paid for it at the point in time we have the request. So now we're going to put this on the books as if we're imagining we have received the inventory and we're paying for it at the same point in time, at this point in time. To do this, I'm going to do this a little bit in reverse this time. I'm going to first think about building the subledger, which is going to track the inventory types that we have received. So we got the subledger way over here and BD. So we got these are the inventory items we're imagining we received, the types of guitars, an ELP, an EPSP, and so on. Now this can get a little bit complicated to track in Excel because we could have multiple inventory units, which could get a bit detailed, but it gives us an idea of how you might track this information and the complications that are involved with the tracking as we try to track on a perpetual inventory system as opposed to a periodic system within the Excel as being basically our template, our worksheet, which you can then apply to accounting software, which will be using a similar concept as it tries to track the inventory as you go through. So we're going to then say, okay, this happened on 1/14. I'm going to say that we got some ELPs. So we're going to imagine that we're going to be purchasing 70. So on the purchase side of things, 70 units, I'm going to say at $400 and multiply this out. So 70 units times 400. We're going to have units then 70 units. Dollar-wise, we've got $28,000 worth of the inventory. Then I'm also going to pull that to the ending inventory to show us the ending balance. It's going to help us to determine the ending balance on the trial balance. So we got the 70, we've got the 400, we've got the 70 times the 400. Now, depending on the flow assumption, it could be FIFO, LIFO, weighted average. We're not going to have any changes to the inventory in this case, so it won't really matter what flow assumption you use. So I'm going to basically just sum these up now for our total. This equals the sum of these two. So this is where we stand at this point. We've got 71 units of these guitars. They're still at $400 because we haven't had any change to the price of the guitars. So it doesn't really matter the flow assumption, FIFO, LIFO, average. And then we'll multiply that out, and that will give us then the 28,000. Let's say this times this will give us the 28,400. So now we're at 28,400. We're also going to say that we purchased in our purchasing process from the same vendor, which is going to be Epiphone. We are imagining one with a tag of EPSP, another bunch of guitars that we're imagining that we purchased on 1/14. So I'm going to do the same thing for a different kind of inventory item that we have to track separately now. We're saying that we bought 5 of those at $480. That's going to be what they cost. That's what they cost us. This equals to 5 times 480. That's how much we purchased in this purchase of these types of guitars. And so then if I go over here and say that, what's that going to do to ending inventory? We're going to have 5 more units at 480. So 5 times 480. Now we've got another 2,400 of the guitars. Let's add them up then. So we had 1 last time. Plus 5 gives us the 6 at 480. That gives us then the 6 times the 480, or the 2,880 of those types of guitars. We're also going to say that we purchased an EPR type of guitar from the same vendor. So this is all included on the purchase order. You can imagine the purchase order listing out all these guitars that we want. And now we're going to have to track them all in all of our subledgers because now we have received them. So now we're going to say, all right, on 1/14, we got 5 of these, 5 more of these guitars, and these cost $440. So multiplying that out, 5 times 440 gives us 2,200. Let's see what we have in the ending inventory for these guitars. We have 5 times 440. 5 times 440 is that 2,200. Summing up the total in units gives us 6 units at 440. Multiplying the 6 times the 440, we then have the 2,640 of those types of guitars. And then finally, in this purchase, one more, we also purchased some of these EPSHs from the same vendor, which we're going to imagine is Epiphone. 1/14, we purchased 14 of those at the cost, which is $320. So we're going to say 14 times 320, 4,480. Pulling that over into the ending inventory, what do we have in total then? We've got another 14 at 320, so 14 times 320, summing up the 14 and the 2, gives us then total units of the 16, still at the 320. So now we got 16 times 320, or 5,140. Okay, so I know that's tedious stuff right there, but now we could say, okay, so how much did we actually purchase? We purchased this $28,000 worth for 70 units. I'm holding down control, and we have that $24,000 worth of units, and I'm holding down control. We've got that 440, and then I'm holding down control. We've got that 320, which adds up to that. Let me try to do that again. I think I missed something. So we got the 28, holding down control, the 22,004, the 2,002, the 4,480 adds up to the 37,080. So that's the total amount that we're going to be paying the vendor, which we're going to imagine to be Epiphone, for all of these guitars. Once we enter that into place, this red amount up top should be back to a green, because if I add up the ending balances in our subledger, it should tie out now. So let's check it out. We'll do this again. I know this was kind of a tedious task to do these items, but we'll go all the way to the left now, And now we're going to enter the transaction. So the transaction, I'm going to say, happened on 114, and we're going to have an increase to the inventory. This doesn't happen when the purchase order happens, remember. It happens when we received the inventory from the purchase order. We would be linking the purchase order and having these units in our warehouse if we used a purchase ordering type of process. Typically, is the imagination that we are going with here. And so then you could type in that number we got to, 37,080. I'm going to use a formula, though, and pick them up from the subledger so you can see where it comes from again. So I'm going to say this equals, I'm going to go all the way to the subledger just so we can see where am I coming up with this number. It's coming from, it needs to match the subledger of that 28,000 we purchased plus the 24,000 we purchased plus these units, the 2,200 plus this one was 2,400 and the 4,480, and that should give us that 37,080. There we go. So that's going to be our debit and credit. So simple journal entry, but the supporting documentation of it, if you're tracking the inventory by unit, can be quite complex. So now we're going to go up and say, okay, inventory up top, simple transaction. It's just going to increase. Notice how this causes the problems with relation to inventory. So whenever you're dealing with inventory, whether it be in an Excel worksheet or in the actual some kind of accounting software, you have to be mindful of those needs of the ledger. That's why it causes complications. So then the checking account is going to be up top. So we're in M4. What's an M4 for spelling stuff? I don't know, 37,080. And there we have it. So we've totaled that up. That looks good. Let's imagine we're going to do it again. This time we're going to do it. We're going to purchase another one from Gibson, another one. So we'll do the same kind of process. I'll think about the subledger first. And we can also check if the subledger ties out. Now it should be at the 39,976. So if I go over to the subledger way over here, does it turn green again? It does. And it adds up to that 39,976. Great. So now we're going to do this again. This time we bought Gibson guitars. So we labeled these with these little, the G things over here. So we bought then on 115 a GI USA. So 115, it's a kind of guitar. We bought 3 of those at the cost, which is still at the 304. So 3 times 304 is $912 we paid. What do we have left in units in ending inventory? 3 times 304, multiplying that out. That means we have the 3 that we started with plus the added 3, summing those up. The 6 at the 304. That means we got 6 times 304 or 1,084 of those dollars worth of those guitars. And then also we also purchased the GSB guitars. GSB. Oh man, we don't have a GSB guitar. So we're going to have to add a whole ledger here. So this is going to be fancy to do this. So I'm going to add a whole ledger. So what I'm going to do is go from the skinny column, and then copy on over to the CI. And then just copy that whole thing. And I'm going to put that right in this skinny area, right there in the skinny. Put it in the skinny. So we're going to right click and we'll paste the insert copied cells just like so. And so now I'm going to delete these names. So this is not this anymore. I'm going to delete the activity. We're starting off with these new cells at a 0 beginning balance. 0. And these are just adding the ones above it then. So there we have that. Same with this one down here. Nothing's there yet. This is going to be a starting realm of 0. And then we should be equaling the one above it for all the cells on down below it. Okay, and then we're going to say this is a GSB, brand new guitar. We never bought these before. We didn't have any of these before, but now we do. And this is going to be then 115. On these items, we're going to buy 10 of those. 10 of those, and they cost apparently $5.98. So we're going to say that we have 10 times $5.98. Pulling that over to the ending inventory, 10. And the $5.98, 10 times $5.98. Okay, so that's what we're going to be purchasing this time. So I think that all works out. So now we're going to say that if I add these up, I purchased this 912 worth of guitars for the GIUSAs, and then the GSBs holding down control, we purchased those. So now we got a total dollar amount for our journal entry of the $6,892. We also have to adjust our subledger up top to pick up those new items at the end for our check figure, which is over here. So I'm going to say this number right there, I'm going to double click on it. The end of it needs to be picking up to these items at the end, these new subledger items, which are way over here. I'm not there yet. This one, and then I'll add this one too, since there's nothing in this one yet, but we'll just add it because we'll probably use it later. And then I'm going to say okay. So it's still out of balance by that 6,892 as it should be until we record the transaction. So let's go all the way to the left and record the transaction again. This one on 115, same look and feel of the transaction. We're going to be debiting inventory now. This is like the easy part now. We're going to debit inventory, and the other side is going to go to the checking account. So the checking account, and I didn't even record this to the general ledger yet, but we'll do that. We'll record it all to the general ledger in a second. And then I'm going to say, once again, you could just type in the 6,892, but I'm going to do this so you can see where it comes from. Equals, go all the way to the ledger. And so we need to tie this out to the ledger. We've got to tie it out to the ledger. So we're going to say this is going to be the 912 that we purchased, and we purchased that 5980, and that's where that 6,892 comes from. Negative of that number. There, we got it. Let's indent the checking, alignment, indent. We're going to do it one more time this time. One more time, and then we'll post all these to the GL, which should be the easy part. So let's do it. This one also happened on 115. This one will be an easy one, though. This one will be an easy one. I promise. Hey, we're not back in balance yet. Hold on a second. So 6,892. If I go back on over, I didn't post it. So let's post this one, and then we'll post to the GL later. This is inventory up top. So inventory, double clicking on it, plus picking up that inventory, and then checking account up top, double clicking on it, plus picking up the checking account. Okay, so now we're back in balance here. We haven't posted to the GL. We'll do that later, but let's do this one last one. I know I'm speaking faster here because I probably should have broke this out into two presentations, I'm starting to think now, but whatever. Here we go. This is it. We're going to go 46,868 all the way back over. That ties out to the subledge now. Now we got a green 0, so we've done good, and therefore deserve some kind of treat or something. In any case, we're going to go over to the duck, this area. Now we got this one. This is some kind of ukulele. This time this isn't even a guitar. It's supposed to be a ukulele. But we're going to say 115 from another vendor. This is on 3. We got 3 of those we purchased at, these cost $24. So now I'm going to say 3 times 24, 72 total. And then I'm just going to bring that over. This is the only one we purchased here. 3 times 24, multiplying that out, gets us up to 72. How many do we have in total then? We had 1 before, so now we got 4. $24, 4 times 24. Now we're at the 96 total on those units. That then we need to record for 72. That should throw us off by the 72 up top here. There it does. Let's record it. Let's go all the way to the left now. Record these items one more time. Uno vez más, the inventory, and then the checking account that we purchased this other guitars, which is actually a ukulele. I'm going to say equals. I'm going to pull this all the way over from the ledger. 74 or 72. There we go. And then there's the credit. Going to indent this now. Indentation and inventory up top. So when the inventory, double clicking on the inventory, going to the end of it, plus we're going to pick up that 72. Checking account, double clicking on it, end of it, plus picking up the 72 on the credit. So the journal entries are nice and easy, you can see. but the subledgers are the confusing part. Now that subledger should turn green again. We're at 46,940. So if I go back on over here to the subledge, we're going to say this is green, which makes me feel sublime about the subledge. So we're going to then say, okay, now let's post to the general ledger. We're going to post all of these to the general ledger. I'll try to do this at one time to make this a little bit faster because we've seen this stuff before. So we're just going to do these 3 journal entries, posting them to the GL to get us back in alignment with the G to the L. So I'm going to say this is going to be inventory. I'm going to say this equals, that first one was on 114 and the other 2 were on 115, 115 and 115. And then I'm going to be on U17. I'm going to go equals. And I'm going to pick up the inventory here, which is the 3780, taking us from 2,896 up 3780 to 39,976. The second one was for the 6892, bringing us back up to 46,868. And the last one then finally was for that 72 for the ukulele, the little uke. And that's going to give us the 46,940. That should match out to what is on the trial balance, and it should put us out of balance until we record the other side, which is going to the checking account, so we don't have to worry about the actual vendors. We'll talk about the vendors later because we're only tracking the subledger on who we paid if we haven't yet paid them, so we know who to pay in this particular situation. In accounting software, then you can also kind of break out who you paid by subledger by tracking the vendors for each transaction. So in any case, we're now going to go to the checking account, same thing. Checking account, this is going to be 114, 115, 115. And the 114 was equals the first transaction we paid for Epiphone guitars, 37,080, bringing the balance down from 105 down to 37,080 to 67,920. Then we paid 6,892, bringing the balance down to 61,92. You can see this is why we had to put money into the company up front and why we needed the loan. Of course, now we're investing in furniture and equipment. Now we're buying inventory so that we can hopefully make money. Hopefully we make money. There we go. There's the 60,956. Little dyslexic thing. And then we got the zeros are back in balance. And that number right there ties out to the 60,956 here as well. So now we still haven't generated any revenue yet. So now we've got our shop, we've got our guitars, we've got our furniture, and hopefully somebody wants to buy stuff, because if they don't, we're in big trouble. But we're going to sell guitars soon. Don't worry, it'll work. It's going to work.